From the Gray Man Briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more.
For the third quarter of 2025, this is Update 8 to the Gray Man Briefing's summary of recent developments. Across the country, Mississippi's age verification law for minors accessing online platforms was allowed to take effect after the U.S. Supreme Court declined to block it. West Virginia, South Carolina, and Ohio have now deployed National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. to support federal policing operations. In Oklahoma, officials introduced a required America First exam for incoming teachers from New York and California. And in Utah, a full power outage at a Level 1 trauma center caused evacuations after backup generators failed. Nationally, a cyber attack linked to Russian actors disrupted federal court systems, exposing sealed legal documents. The FBI reported over 1.2 million school-related criminal incidents between 2020 and 2024, with peak months in September, October, and February. The Anti-Defamation League, or ADL, added America First to its extremism glossary, labeling it a phrase used by racists and xenophobic extremists. Russia restricted WhatsApp and Telegram face and audio calls under its digital sovereignty policy, and Canada enacted sweeping outdoor activity bans, blocking citizens from hiking, camping, fishing, and boating. Let's begin with government oversight, discussing Canada. Multiple provinces have restricted public access to parks, trails, and wooded areas due to alleged wildfire risks. In Nova Scotia, a province-wide ban prohibits hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in wooded areas on public and private land until October 15th, with fines up to what would be $18,000 in US dollars. New Brunswick has closed all Crown land, that's public parks and wooded areas, and implemented a province-wide burn ban. Manitoba closed several provincial parks, along with associated campgrounds and water routes. Saskatchewan closed the Narrow Hills Provincial Park until 2026. All closures are tied directly to wildfire hazard or recent wildfire damage, with no other causes reported. Hiking of most trails, camping in the woods, fishing, and other outdoor activities are banned in most regions. The government is permitting citizens to continue to access beach parks and recreation areas along the shores. While intended to reduce wildfire risk during extreme dry conditions, these measures raise concerns over government overreach and the broad exclusion of citizens from public and even private outdoor spaces. Nova Scotia's rules apply regardless of whether a wildfire is active locally, and fines are steep enough to deter even responsible low-risk use. Such blanket bans can disproportionately affect recreation, mental health, and community traditions tied to outdoor activities, especially when safer alternatives could be offered. The use of emergency powers without public consultation and the lack of targeted zone-specific closures are excessive government overreach. Citizens' rights are infringed as nearly all common outdoor activities are prohibited and largely regulated in the name of public safety. And let's listen to a statement issued by Nova Scotia's Premier.
Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. Camping is allowed, but only in official campgrounds. The fine for violating any of these bans is the same as the fine for the ban on burning, $25,000. We strongly encourage you to stay out of those woods, regardless of where they are. Please don't do anything that could unnecessarily put you, your family, or your neighbors at risk. This situation sucks. Summer is one of the best times in Nova Scotia, and we all look forward to getting outdoors and enjoying our scenic beauty that surrounds us. I get that, and I'm right there with you as Nova Scotians. But you can still go to the beach. In fact, that's a great place to be on these hot, dry days. Just no bonfires. If there's a short trail to get from point A to point B, like from the parking to the beach or to the lake to fish, that's fine. But that's it. No heading into the woods to spend time there.
Now moving into the censorship brief. On August 11th, Russia's internet regulator restricted voice and video calls on WhatsApp and Telegram. The decision cites the platform's non-compliance with Russian laws related to terrorism and fraud investigations. Messaging features remain active, but secure communication has been weakened. The government is promoting its Max app as a controlled alternative. Critics say the move increases surveillance, and WhatsApp and Telegram have both defended their moderation efforts and encryption policies amid the accusations of fostering extremism. So if you are in Russia, you cannot use either of these apps to video call or audio call anyone else. Let's now look at major crime. According to an August 12th report published by the FBI, from 2020 to 2024, law enforcement agencies reported over 1.29 million criminal incidents at school locations, involving 1.5 million offenses, 1.53 million victims, and 1.25 million offenders. Assaults were the most frequent crime against persons. Larcenies and thefts against property and drug and narcotic violations against society ranked next. September, October, and February were the peak months for school crime. Most victims were 13 to 15-year-old female and white. The majority suffered no or only minor injuries and often knew the offender. Offenders were most frequently male and white. 44% of students were white of the whole population of students, or about 22 million, and they committed about 0.3% of crimes, while about 15% were black, or about 7 million, and committed 0.57% of crimes. Also, the offenders were aged 13 to 15. Personal weapons, this is hands, fists, and feet, were the most common weapons used, followed by knives and handguns. While reported incidents rose over the period, this largely reflected more agencies joining the FBI's NIBRS reporting system rather than a confirmed surge in school crime. The data is likely underreported as many agencies did not submit any information. Parents should consider this data while planning for the safety of their children in school. Schools may implement safety measures, but families need their own layered plans to keep children protected. One of the most important steps is to establish an emergency pickup plan with the school. Ensure that only authorized adults can collect your child, and use a family code word to prevent mistakes or exploitation by strangers. Prepare children for high-stress situations, such as an active shooter event. Age-appropriate training on run, hide, fight, reinforced with practice at home, helps turn panic into action when seconds count. Other threats, such as peer pressure, bullying, and inappropriate teacher-student relations, should also be addressed. Children should have no secrets with school staff and should be trained to share all information with parents. Parents should scrutinize their school's safety protocols every year. Ask administrators how visitor access is controlled, how emergency alerts are communicated, and how threats like bullying and violence are handled. Ask your school to conduct a CPTED-related security survey. I could go on here. We're just looking a little bit what the Gray Man briefing provided as far as their analysis and guidance. If you're interested in reading more of this, join at graymanbriefing.com. Let's move into infrastructure. On August 14th, Intermountain Medical Center in Murray, Utah, experienced a full power outage, with initial backup generators also failing. This left critical units without power for up to an hour, forcing the transfer of 5 NICU infants and 6 laboring mothers. Elective surgeries were postponed and emergency services were rerouted. Partial power was later restored. The cause of the failure remains under investigation, with some speculation about possible deliberate disruption. Emergency portable generators were placed on standby but not deployed. Looking at education, Oklahoma State Superintendent Ryan Walters announced that any teachers applying from New York or California must pass a new America First exam to receive certification within Oklahoma. It's developed by PragerU, which is a conservative think tank and online media organization. The test includes roughly 50 questions on topics including the Constitution, biological sex, religious freedom, and the 2020 election. Walters said that the policy prevents, quote, radical leftist ideology, end quote, from entering classrooms. Supporters claim it protects Oklahoma values, while critics call it a political loyalty test. Legal action is likely, and the requirement may expand to other states. Moving into civil unrest, pro-Palestinian, anti-Trump, anti-DC federalization, and LGBT protests remain widely ongoing. Pro-Iranian protests also persist but are overshadowed by the demonstrations related to DC and Trump. Join the Gray Man Briefing to get briefs on protest, riots, and extremism sent in real time with analysis at graymanbriefing.com. Looking now at a legal update, on August 14th, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to block Mississippi's law requiring age verification and parental consent for minors accessing social media and online platforms. Justice Kavanaugh noted the law likely violates the First Amendment, but said emergency relief was not justified. The decision means platforms must now comply while litigation continues. A federal judge had previously blocked the law, but the Fifth Circuit allowed it to take effect. NetChoice, which is also challenging similar laws in 5 other states, is continuing to fight that legal battle. Moving into national security and government oversight, at the request of the Department of Defense, West Virginia will send 300 to 400 National Guard troops, South Carolina 200, and Ohio 150 military police, all to Washington, D.C. These deployments support the president's federal action to address crime and homelessness in the capital. Though initially assigned to non-law enforcement duties, reports now suggest that troops may be authorized to carry weapons. The move builds on earlier deployments and signals increased federal control over security in D.C. This marks a shift toward broader National Guard involvement under Title 32 authorities. Looking at cybersecurity, a prolonged cyber attack compromised the U.S. federal court's PACER and CMECF systems, which manage public and internal legal filings. Officials say Russian-linked hackers accessed sensitive and sealed court documents. The breach has raised national security concerns, particularly involving cases with drug cartels and protected witnesses. The president is considering addressing the issue directly with Russia. Agencies include the DOJ, DHS, and the Office of Administrative U.S. Courts. They're all working to reinforce cybersecurity measures for court infrastructure. And finally, let's look at another current event. The Anti-Defamation League, which is an Israeli-controlled NGO, has added the phrase and the slogan, America First, to its glossary of extremism and hate. The group says the phrase is used in anti-Semitic and xenophobic ways by extremist groups. It claims that within U.S. mainstream politics, the slogan is tied to nationalist and non-interventionalist ideology promoted by President Trump. Critics argue the ADL's designation mislabels legitimate political expression, counters patriotism, and supports efforts to suppress conservative messaging. The ADL maintains partnerships with governments and law enforcement agencies here in the U.S. to counter any perceived hate-based ideologies. Let's stop there for now. Remember, these briefings are delivered in real time to Gray Man Briefing subscribers, where you can join at graymanbriefing.com. That is it for this week. Thanks for listening, and as always, remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.